Welcome back to Gold Rush Reporter. Today, we're talking about something that doesn't always get the spotlight it deserves: silver. It's funny to say that, because silver has always been right there beside gold, yet it often feels like the quieter sibling. Now, it's been a while since I've made a silver-focused video, so today I thought I'd fix that. Even though I haven't been buying silver lately, the mechanics of stacking it are almost the same as stacking gold, and honestly, the reasons for holding it are very similar too. But to really make sense of this, I want to set aside my gold bias for a moment and just look at silver for what it truly is: a tangible asset that can protect your money over time. Silver isn't about getting rich overnight. It's about owning something real. Something that isn't eaten away by inflation or bad monetary policy. When you hold silver, you're holding an asset that, at least in theory, is immune to the same forces that destroy the value of a cash savings account. Inflation is an obvious one, but so is government debt and reckless spending. The problem is that too many people exaggerate silver's potential. They make it sound like a rocket ready to launch, rather than what it really is: a stable, slow-moving store of value that you can use as a hedge and as an alternative savings tool. That's why a lot of people end up disappointed. They get caught up in this silver is going to explode mindset. The hype makes it hard to build a realistic plan, like when to buy, how much to buy, or even how to sell if prices move in your favor. And without a plan, you're basically throwing money into something without an exit strategy. Now, my own history with silver is far less organized than with gold. I used to buy gold every single month for 8 years straight. No breaks, no gaps. But silver? I only picked it up whenever I had extra cash lying around, or when I happened to pass by a coin shop. It wasn't consistent. It wasn't planned. Still, over the years, I built up a monster box of American silver eagles, some 10-ounce bars, and a few random foreign bullion coins. Looking back, I'd call those foreign coins mistakes. But we'll get to that later. Here's something I learned. The system of stacking silver should follow the same discipline as gold. You don't need to chase prices or go all in. The smart approach is to buy in scheduled increments. Slow, steady, and consistent. That way, you average your costs over time and avoid emotional buying. You're also less likely to overspend when excitement hits the market. Think of it like a long-term habit, not a get-rich move. You stay focused, you build gradually, and before you know it, you've accumulated something meaningful. And let's be honest, buying silver can actually be fun. It's one of those rare savings habits that feels like a hobby. Every coin or bar you buy feels like an achievement. You get that little hit of excitement when you add a few more ounces to your collection. Then those coins fill up a tube, those tubes fill up a monster box, and that feeling of progress keeps you motivated. It's almost like a game where every small win brings you closer to a bigger goal. You're not just saving, you're leveling up. And what's great about that mindset is that it keeps you from wasting money elsewhere. It turns saving into something you actually want to do. When I built my monster box, it didn't happen overnight. It took patience and consistency. I didn't wake up one day and drop thousands on a pile of silver. It was a gradual process, a decade-long achievement that never felt painful. And through it all, my head was in the right place. I was buying for the long term, not chasing hype. I started stacking before the 2011 price spike, and when silver ran up to $48 an ounce, I was already positioned. But I stopped buying at $25 because it felt like the price was getting ahead of itself. I didn't want to be that person who buys at the top. That decision turned out to be smart because after 2013, silver crashed. Hard. That experience taught me a lot. It taught me that silver doesn't move in straight lines, and that emotional stacking can lead to regret. What mattered most wasn't timing the perfect buy, it was having a clear head and a solid plan. So if there's one takeaway here, it's this. Build your silver position with patience, discipline, and awareness. Don't let hype drive your decisions. Let strategy do that. In the next part, I'll dig deeper into what happened after that price crash, how the silver community changed, and why the mindset of stacking silver today is very different from back then. After that 2013 crash, things really shifted in how people talked about silver. Back then, there wasn't this constant noise online. I didn't have YouTube channels shouting at me to buy now, or telling me that this week was the last chance before silver went to the moon. I was getting my information from forums, blogs, and the occasional Reddit thread. It was a smaller community, quieter, and a lot more focused on steady stacking rather than hype. People would share how much silver they were holding, maybe give suggestions on local coin shops or premiums, but there wasn't this pressure to buy hundreds of ounces overnight. It felt more genuine, more grounded. Silver was seen as a tool, not a ticket to instant wealth. Contrast that with what we see today. A wave of loud predictions, dramatic thumbnails, and claims that this is it, silver's about to explode. That kind of energy makes it easy for new stackers to feel like they're missing out if they're not buying every week. But that's not how smart stacking works. The truth is, silver doesn't reward panic buying. It rewards consistency and patience. If you're buying because you're scared of missing the next big move, chances are you're going to end up overpaying and regretting it later. The silver squeeze movement in 2021 was a perfect example. Everyone was hyped up, expecting prices to skyrocket overnight. But what actually happened? A few days of excitement, and then the market settled right back down. The people who bought emotionally at the top learned that lesson the hard way. Back in my early stacking days, I never had that kind of noise in my head. When I was buying silver before 2011, it just felt like a simple, smart way to store value. I wasn't comparing it to gold every day or tracking minute-by-minute price changes. It was calm. I knew it was something real that I could hold, something I could understand. I didn't need an influencer to tell me to do it. I just liked the idea of converting cash into something tangible. That's the mindset I wish more people had today. Not get rich quick, but build slow wealth. Because when silver eventually ran up to $48 and then crashed, it was a hard reminder that markets move in cycles. If you get caught up in hype, you'll always be the one buying near the top. Another thing that really changed over time was how silver started to feel like a game to many new investors. And don't get me wrong, that can be fun. Collecting unique designs, hunting for deals, comparing premiums, it gives you something to look forward to. But when people start treating it like a competition or a quick profit opportunity, they lose the long-term mindset. They forget that silver, just like gold, is about protecting purchasing power. It's not about timing every spike. It's about holding something that still has value when everything else is losing it. The silver squeeze movement reminded me how easily the market can get manipulated by emotion and hype, not fundamentals. That's why I always tell people, ignore the noise. Don't get caught up in "today's the big day" headlines or "silver is about to explode" thumbnails. If you focus on that stuff, you're not stacking. You're speculating. Smart stacking is boring stacking. It's steady, predictable, and planned. You don't buy because you feel pressured. You buy because it fits your goals and your budget. It's okay to slow down, take a step back, and wait for the right conditions. That's something the older silver community used to understand very well. It wasn't about excitement, it was about discipline. For me, that period after 2013 was a wake-up call. I saw firsthand what happens when the hype fades. I didn't lose everything, but I learned that my best silver purchases were the ones made calmly, not emotionally. That's what I try to pass on now as an analyst. The real secret to stacking isn't finding the next big event. It's learning to stick to your plan even when everyone else is panicking. That's what separates a seasoned stacker from a nervous one. So, when I look at silver today, I still see potential. But it's the kind of potential that belongs to people who can think long term. You have to understand what you're buying and why you're buying it. The market will always move up and down, but if your headspace is clear, none of that noise matters. In the next part, I'll take you deeper into my own stacking story. The mistakes I made with certain forms of silver and what those experiences taught me about how to buy smarter today. Now let's talk about the part where my silver journey really started to teach me lessons. The buying choices I made and which ones I'd call mistakes today. Over about a decade, I managed to build up a monster box of American silver eagles, a dozen 10-ounce bars, and a handful of foreign bullion coins. At the time, I thought variety would make my stack more interesting. I wanted a little bit of everything. Some Canadian maple leafs, a few Perth mint coins, and some random rounds that caught my eye. But later, I realized that this approach wasn't smart from a value or liquidity standpoint. When it came time to sell, I learned a hard truth. Not all silver is treated equally in the real world. The American Silver Eagles were the star of the show. When I started selling, every dealer wanted them, and not just at spot price. They were paying premiums well above the metal value. In contrast, those generic bars and foreign coins didn't get the same treatment. Dealers bought them for spot, or even less, lumping them into what they called the random bin. That was a lesson that stuck with me. Silver is silver when you're buying it, but when you're selling, reputation and recognizability matter. People trust coins like the Silver Eagle or the Maple Leaf because they're widely recognized, easy to authenticate, and backed by government mints. That trust translates into better resale value and faster transactions. Now, when the first silver squeeze happened around February 2021, I had already sold most of my 10-ounce bars and about 80% of my monster box. I'd gotten decent prices, around $28 spot, and even some solid premiums on top. But when the hype hit, I'll admit, I felt like I might have jumped the gun. Prices started climbing. Excitement was everywhere, and for a brief moment, it felt like I had sold too early. Still, I reminded myself that my decision was based on a plan, not emotion. And that's key. I wasn't trying to time the absolute top. I was following my strategy to take profits and move into other assets. That's when I started shifting some of my silver value into gold and even a bit of cryptocurrency, Bitcoin and Ethereum. It wasn't about abandoning silver. It was about diversifying. I'd learned from the 2011 crash that it's never a good idea to hold too much of one asset, especially one as volatile as silver. By trading some of my physical holdings for digital and gold assets, I was trying to balance my portfolio while still keeping exposure to hard assets. And honestly, that move turned out to be a good one. Silver didn't skyrocket like people predicted, but Bitcoin and Ethereum did rise significantly over the following years. My silver helped fund those positions. And in a way, that's proof of how valuable silver can be as a bridge asset. But the biggest takeaway from all of that wasn't just about profit. It was about understanding what kind of silver is worth stacking and what kind isn't. Those foreign bullion coins, they looked great, but they were tough to sell. I realized that, for most stackers, simplicity wins. A stack made up of recognizable liquid pieces, like Silver Eagles or 10-ounce bars from trusted mints, is far easier to manage when it's time to sell. If you want to experiment with collectibles or limited editions, that's fine. But it should be for fun, not as your core investment. Another lesson was how premiums can completely change the game. When premiums on Silver Eagles spiked, I stopped buying. It just didn't make sense to pay such high markups when the underlying spot price wasn't moving much. That's when patience pays off. Sometimes the smartest thing you can do is wait. It's better to buy at fair value than to chase overpriced hype. When the market settles, you'll get more ounces for your money. After that selling phase, I took some time to really analyze what I had learned. It wasn't just about the money I made. It was about the mindset shift that came with the experience. When I first started stacking, I was all about building quantity. I thought that having more ounces automatically meant I was doing better. But what I learned is that stacking is about quality of decision, not just quantity of metal. Every buy and every sell has to make sense within your personal goals. And that's what defines whether you're a smart stacker or just another collector chasing hype. If I were starting again today, I'd begin with a plan. I'd ask myself, why am I stacking silver? Is it for long-term security, for future profit, or just because I enjoy collecting it? Once you define that clearly, the rest becomes easier. For example, if your goal is financial security, to protect your wealth against inflation or a weak dollar, then your focus should be on steady, low premium purchases. That means sticking to well-known bullion coins and bars. But if you're stacking for fun, then there's nothing wrong with adding a few collectible or limited edition pieces. Just be honest with yourself about your purpose so you don't confuse collecting with investing. Another thing I do differently is how I manage timing. Early on, I used to buy aggressively whenever I had extra cash, without considering market conditions. But after the silver squeezes and seeing those emotional waves firsthand, I realized that patience is a weapon. Silver always moves in cycles. It rises fast, then cools off, then builds again quietly. The best opportunities usually come during those quiet periods, when no one is talking about silver, when the hype is gone. That's when you can find lower premiums, better deals, and make more rational decisions. I'd rather buy slowly and smartly than rush in with excitement. The other important part of the strategy is diversification. I know this sounds ironic coming from someone called the silver stacker, but having all your money in one metal isn't smart. Silver can be volatile, and its price can swing dramatically in short periods. What I do now is keep silver as part of my overall plan, alongside gold, some cash reserves, and other assets. That balance keeps me from feeling stressed when silver dips, because I know it's not my only safety net. The goal is stability, not obsession. And then there's the emotional side. Silver stacking can become addictive. Watching the numbers grow, stacking tube after tube, it gives a sense of control. But that can turn into a trap if you're not careful. I had to remind myself that silver is a tool, not a trophy. It's there to serve a purpose, to preserve purchasing power and offer flexibility during uncertain times. If you start treating it like a game, you'll lose focus and maybe even make poor choices chasing the thrill of stacking. What's funny is after I sold most of my silver, I didn't feel regret. I felt clarity. It was like cleaning up my financial habits. I realized I didn't need hundreds of ounces to feel secure. A smaller, more efficient stack could do the same job with less stress. Today, I keep silver as a secondary layer in my wealth plan, something tangible that balances out the digital nature of modern finance. It's comforting to know that no matter what happens to banks, apps, or digital systems, I still own something real, physical, and globally recognized. That's the beauty of silver. It's accessible, tangible, and historic. yet still relevant in a modern world that runs on credit and numbers on screens. Silver keeps you grounded. It reminds you that value doesn't have to be complicated. It can be held in your hand. And as an analyst, I can tell you, that simple truth gives silver a unique strength, even beyond its price movements. In the final part, I'll wrap everything up. How silver fits into the bigger financial picture, what long-term stackers should focus on today, and the key lessons that separate emotional buyers from disciplined investors. Stay tuned. When I look back at my silver stacking journey from the very beginning to where I stand now, one thing becomes crystal clear. Silver has always been more than just a metal to me. It's been a teacher. It taught me patience, discipline, and perspective. In the early days, I used to think stacking was only about building ounces and waiting for the price to explode. But over time, I learned that silver is more about balance than bravado. It's about building confidence in your own financial plan, not chasing internet hype or emotional market swings. The real value lies in what silver teaches you about money itself, how fragile paper wealth can be, and how grounding tangible assets really are. When I sold off most of my silver, it wasn't because I stopped believing in it. It was because I learned to view silver as one part of a bigger strategy. You see, stacking should fit within your overall financial goals, not replace them. Silver gives you a base, a foundation that's physical and real. But your future wealth depends on how you combine that foundation with other elements: gold, cash, maybe even real-world investments that generate income. That's how you build something sustainable. Silver is the defense, not the whole game plan. So, what's the lesson here? It's that stacking isn't a race, it's a rhythm. There will always be another dip, another rally, another squeeze. Don't let the noise push you into making emotional choices. The smartest stackers are the calmest ones. They buy when everyone's quiet, they hold when others panic, and they sell when excitement clouds judgment. If you can master that discipline, then no matter what silver's price does next, you'll always come out ahead, because you're stacking for strength, not speculation. Today, when I look at the silver I still hold, I see peace of mind. It's not about the number of ounces anymore. It's about having something that's real in an uncertain world. Silver is still undervalued compared to what it represents. But even if it never skyrockets, it still plays its role perfectly. It's a hedge, a backup plan, and a reminder that real wealth doesn't vanish with a click. For me, that's worth more than any quick profit. And that brings me to you, the viewer, the listener, the fellow stacker. Whether you're new to stacking or you've been doing it for years, remember this. Silver isn't just about preparing for what might go wrong. It's about building confidence for what can go right. Every ounce you stack, every smart decision you make, adds a layer of control to your financial life. It's not about fear, it's about freedom. So if you've taken anything away from my story, let it be this: stack with purpose. Know your goals. Don't get caught in hype. Buy what you understand and never forget why you started. Because when you keep your head clear, silver becomes more than metal. It becomes a mindset. That's all for today's breakdown. I hope this deep dive gave you a better understanding of not just how to stack, but how to think like a real silver analyst. If you found this useful, hit that like button, share it with a fellow stacker, and subscribe if you haven't already. I've got more deep insights coming your way soon. From global gold trends to the psychology behind precious metals investing. You've been watching Gold Rush Reporter, where we don't just follow the markets, we understand them. Thanks for watching. And until next time, stay smart, stay stacked.